Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for coming to the very first TaxCalc Power Hour. I'm Andy North, the CMO here at TaxCalc, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Many of our customers have suggested that they want to hear tips and tricks for making the most from their TaxCalc software, so we thought we would oblige with a live show, and we're here to do just that. I'm pleased to say that I've persuaded two experts to join us and share their TaxCalc know-how today. First of all, we've got our Head of Training and Onboarding, Mr. Nick Moss, and also our Key Account Manager, Danny Darcy, who collectively know more about TaxCalc than is probably healthy, to be honest. For the next hour, they are at our disposal to answer any questions that you might have about TaxCalc primarily. In the registration, we asked what you would most like to hear about. So there was a broad mix of topics that were requested, but the most popular, and therefore the areas that we're going to focus on today, were, drumroll, the use of custom fields to enhance your client data set, running dynamic reports and creating tailored mailing lists, and proactive communication with the Communication Center. So what we're going to do, Nick is going to run through his top tips on those items in a few minutes, but this is really where the Power Hour comes into its own. It's all about your questions. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation, and also if you've got tips or tricks that you found yourself and you'd like to share those, we really want to hear those too. We kind of want to make this into more of a sort of workshop. And this is also something that we're experimenting with. For the Power Hour, we now have the ability to unmute mics and have a live conversation with you. It's obviously a lot easier to explore different points, to clarify points when we're in conversation. So what we can do is unmute, we can activate your mic, you can unmute yourself, and we can actually have a chat to explore different points. If you are happy to do that, when you post any questions into the chat box, just put happy to chat or words to that effect so that we know that you're okay to do that. And I do want to stress, this is something of an experiment for us. Please bear with us. We're probably going to have some technical glitches, but we're hoping not. But if they do happen, it's Nick's fault. So for the next bit, we're going to run through Nick's top tips on reporting on custom fields and on Communication Center. Please post your comments and questions throughout. We'll try and get to them as we go, or we'll have a large section at the end to go through more as well. So fingers crossed, bear with us, and thank you for coming. Over to you, Nick.
Cheers. Thanks, Andy. Hi, everyone. I'm sure some of you will have met me before, either at various events or on training sessions. So please do, like Andy says, bear with us if you've got any issues, but please do put any questions into the chat. Danny and Andy will be monitoring that chat and posting some of those questions and queries to me. But as Andy said, please do also share some of your experiences that you've had and any recommendations you'd have for everyone else on the call to benefit from those. So hopefully you should be able to see my screen now, showing the launcher page of TaxCalc. I mean, if you don't recognise this, I think we've probably got some bigger issues. Probably need to have a chat with our support team. But effectively, the first thing we're going to go through is the custom field section. So what a lot of people aren't aware of is that in the practice manager screen of TaxCalc, if I open up one of my clients, Ronald Chang, what you're able to do is in various different sections of the practice management database of Ronald Chang, you're able to add your own custom fields. For example, in engagement, I've added some custom fields towards the bottom half of my screen there for the types of information which you are most likely to store, sometimes currently outside of TaxCalc, maybe on an Excel spreadsheet, for information such as bookkeeping, username and password. I've got a customer value section there in terms of different options in high, medium or low. I'm sure you treat all your customers the same, but in my database I do have low, medium and high customer values. I've got quite a nice one there that a lot of firms struggle to kind of keep track of, which is whether they have fee protection insurance with or without with your practice. So quite having a nice option as a tick box option, yes or no, is very easy to then report on to see whether they do have fee protection with your practice. I've got quite a nice one there in terms of whether you need to send them a Christmas card or not as well. out the database. I also have a recommendation that if you do use us for Smart Vault, you can have a Smart Vault folder link as an option in there to be able to very quickly add it into the browser to find that particular client's Smart Vault folder. There are a few different options you can have, as you can see there, with those custom fields as pure text boxes, like I've got there for bookkeeping username and password. The customer value, I've got drop-down options. You can add as many different options as you like in those, very similar to as I've got up here. Bookkeeping software, I've got multiple different options to pick from there. Even though it's a standard field, it works in a very similar way. Toggle options, yes or no, but you can also add date fields. For example, if you want to know exactly when they became a client. You can also add money fields. For example, if you want to say how much their fixed fee is, for example, you can actually put that into a custom field box as well. The reason why these custom fields are useful is not only just for the purpose of being able to have it in a centralized storage location, but it's the ability to report on that. So for free protection insurance, for example, you're able to run a report and say, show me all of my clients who have free protection insurance with us in the last 12 months. You are then able to plug that into a mailing list and use that, either save it as an external report to potentially put it into a third-party mailing system that I'm sure some of you use, but also more powerfully use that information in TaxCalc for Communications Center, of which it would then store a copy of that email which you've sent out in the Communications Activity tab on the client record. So the custom fields, I personally think, are some of the most underutilized point of the practice management database. For example, you can store some in the personal information tab. For example, I've got some custom fields in here. My tax information tab, you can actually add some custom fields down here as well. Bank details as well. So for some reason I've got their current account number and current account sort code. But all of these fields that I'm adding into my custom fields, you can also pull them through as tokens or like merge fields onto your mailing list documents. So the ability to actually pull them through into emails as an actual autofill field is also really, really useful part of those systems. So once you've got that information filled in your database, what I'm able to do is to go back to Practice Manager and go to Report Manager on the left-hand side. And I've got lots of reports here that come with the system as standard. For example, all the ones with a padlock actually come with the system. You should be able to find that. But if I wanted to run a report and say, show me all of my clients in the database that have free protection insurance with us, I'm able to go to New Report on the left-hand side, choose it's a client report I want to produce, and I can just have it saved in my client report section. You can create additional categories to store all your reports in nice, neat sections that's easy for you to find. But if I click Select and I start typing, for example, a fee protection report, and then put the same thing in my description, and you can make your reports either available for all users or just privately for yourself. And then in this area, you're able to either, so there's two sections to creating a report. The first one of which is you decide which clients appear on the report itself. So you can see here I've got three different options. I've got all, specific, and advanced client selection data mine. If, for example, you're just producing a report that says I want all of my clients to appear on it, and I want to see yes or no whether they have free protection insurance or not, you would choose all. Specific allows you to choose, unsurprisingly, specific clients to appear on that report in terms of just from a pick list, whereas advanced client selection data mine allows you to effectively apply a filter or a condition to say I'm only interested in clients with certain database fields filled out. For example, if I go to data mine here, a very simple one, if I go to add condition and open client information, I can say I'm only interested in seeing all of my clients with a client type of limited company. Hit run and it will now just show me the limited company accounts. You can go a bit more detailed with that. As I said, you could click add condition and you'll be able to find your custom fields, of which here are some of the ones which we saw before, such as bookkeeping, username and password, but then you've got fee protection. So I could say, show me all my clients with free protection insurances, yes, hit run, and you can say I've got these clients that do take free protection insurance with us, okay? You could then go forward to the next section by clicking continue, and then say what information do I want to appear on that report. So you'd probably then want your client code, you probably then want your client name, just by selecting the information on the left-hand side. This is the second part of report creation. First was deciding which clients you want on the report. Second was what information do you want on it. So you might choose client code, client name. You would then probably want some contact information, such as contact number and email address. And then most likely you would then probably want the custom field to say that fee protection insurance is yes, just to confirm everyone on that report was yes. You can choose to sort it by the different options on the right hand side, whether you want it as portrait and landscape. Click continue, click finish and save, hit yes, and then that would give you a list of all of your clients in the database that took fee protection insurance with us. Okay, you would then be able to click left on the left-hand side to create a mailing list, of which you could then go and contact those clients from within Communication Center. So effectively, the ability to use reporting in the system is limited by what information you've put in it. Now, one of my favourite reports to produce out of it from my time working in practice previously was the ability to create a report that would show me, it's quite apt for the timing that we're doing, time of the year now, is to run a report to say, show me all of my clients that have a payment on account for July. So what I'm able to do is to go to new report, as we saw before, I'll call it Power Hour Report. Just copy and paste that, ask for a description as well. Using the same principle, Advanced Client Selection Datamine, click Datamine, add condition, but this time instead of staying in the Client Information tab, if I go to Tax Return Fields and Personal Tax, and if I open up 2022 just so I've got a bit more data in there, you can see you can report and filter on all of the data points that we can see here on screen. So you could say, show me all the clients that have gift aid payments, or show me all the clients that receive child benefit, show me all the clients that have a repayment. So you could contact all of your clients that have got a repayment just to confirm that they have received that repayment. But if I choose payment on account due next year in July and click choose and make it greater than £1 and click run, these are the clients in my database, all individuals, obviously, because I'm personal tax data, that have a payment on account due in July. Click continue. Choose the same type of fields that we had before, such as client code, client name. You'd then probably want the same contact information, contact phone number and email address, but then you would go to tax return fields, personal tax in 2022, and likely include payments on account due in the next year in July, and then total income, just as another example that you can pull out from the database. If I then was to click continue and finish and save and run, that's how quickly it is to use TaxCalc to get that type of data on a single report. I imagine there's quite a few people on the call today who will have more clients in their database with payments on account than I do. But if you're not using the reporting system, you'd have to go into every single client individually to get that kind of data out. But it's the ability to then go to create a mailing list on the left-hand side. So if I click create mailing list, and if I call this the Power Hour Report, or the Power Hour mailing list, should I say, and click create. What I'm then able to do is to open up Communication Center, and we'd see in my mailing lists, Power Hour mailing list is there, and I've got 17 clients on that list because they're the 17 that had payments on account. What you're able to do in TaxCalc as well in the Communication Center, bear in mind this is an additional license if you would like to use that yourself, but again you can take a two-week free trial of any of the products in TaxCalc. You would then have the ability to create whatever email templates you would like. Now, I've created various different email templates for using Communication Center. For example, requesting self-assessment records. So, dear, insert first name. So it's going to pull through that information from the practice management database in TaxCalc and populate this email. And it would send this email to however many clients you would like to from your database. So, other examples that I've got is a nice corporation tax figure one. So you'd send this to all of your limited company clients that potentially have got a corporation tax payment that's due in July. For example, mine says, dear main contact name, we would like to remind you that corporation tax figure of amount is due with the end of the month. Please let us know if you'd like any assistance in how to pay this bill. Kind regards, practice name. I would recommend that you can see I've got the insert signature button on the right hand side there, which does mean that we would be able to, as part of setting up the SMTP settings in TaxCalc to allow you to send it out from the TaxCalc system, we would be able to add your email signature. So as long as that information is stored in TaxCalc, your emails would look the same no matter it comes from TaxCalc or from your Outlook environment. So your client would have no idea that this is an automated message that's come from TaxCalc. Now, the email which I'm going to use as a demonstration this afternoon is the payment on account for July 1, where it will say, dear, insert first name. Please remember that your second payment on account for, and then the active tax year and month I'm producing this report for, and then of the amount, that's the really important one because it can pull that information from the TaxCalc tax return production database and populate it into the body of the email. It can do then the same with the ETR number. I appreciate some practices might not like the idea of sending out the ETR number. You can tailor all these emails with specific reference to whatever you want your practice to send out. Some practices have no problem with sending that out. And then again, kind regards firm name, and we would add your signature on the bottom as well as that. So in terms of sending that out, we would go to send message on the left-hand side. Always makes me feel a bit like a mafia boss whenever I see the term send message. But if I go to the from element, you are able to choose which email address you want to send it from, because we would set up your email addresses, for example, info at, inquiries at, tax at, accounts at, VAT, COSEC, whatever different email accounts that you've got in the system. You're able to set up those to have the permission to send it out of TaxCalc rather than having to do it straight from your Outlook outbox. So if I choose my example one that's in there, and then you would choose the mailing list that we've just created, which is the Power Hour mailing list that we've got there. Appreciate some of these are grayed out because I've not got email addresses in for these particular clients, so obviously it won't be able to send it to them. If I click choose, it then appears in this box here. Now it looks like it's going to send one email to all of them copied in. Don't worry, it doesn't do that. It sends it to them all individually. It does actually put them all in your sent box when it goes out. Now if I go to the template section here, this is where I would choose payment on account for July, of which I've got the subject box there with the subject that's coming through from the template, and it's got the same email that I had before. I'm able to change this here if I wanted to add an extra line in there that's different from my template. Maybe I've got a different idea this year than I had last year. But if I go to preview message and then choose, for example, Ronald that we saw before, this is the example email that Ronald would get out of my database. For example, dear Ronald, please remember your second payment on account for 5th of April 23 of £14,000 is due by 31st of July. Your self-assessment reference is this. Please bear in mind, you don't pay on time. Here's how to pay. Kind regards, TaxCalc Accountancy. So if I then change that from Ronald to Ian Ingram, we'll see this is the email that Ian would get. And you would have the ability in the bottom right-hand corner to either click send now or send later to go out to your, to schedule it to go out to your client at a later date. For example, if you wanted to go out on the 1st of July. Okay, but all of these messages and emails are customizable to you. They're just templates that TaxCalc have provided in the system as examples, but you can use the system for whatever purpose you want. A good example that I had a chat with someone who's been using the system for a while at Accountex. He quite often uses it for proactive messaging if there's been any changes to legislation. So we talked about, if there was a change to how child benefit was calculated next year. Appreciate there's going to be some changes in terms of how childcare is done next year. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did some changes to how child benefit was calculated. You could run a report in the system that says, show me all the clients that would fit the new criteria. Let's say they change it from 50 to £60,000 where the rate reduces to £60,000 to £70,000. You could say, show me all the clients that earn between £50,000 and £70,000 that are likely to be affected by those changes, and contact those people directly. So it's not just like a blanket newsletter that goes out to all clients. You're only included information that is relevant to them in particular. It's also worth noting, just a final point on this, that that in the latest release, which will be going out in the next couple of weeks, you will be able to also add tokens, such as what I can add here for the UTR number and the payment on account, actually into the subject line as well. So that's really useful, again, just as a headline grabber for your client, if you can put the actual payment on account for July as an example in the subject, so they know it's something worth reading from you. But yeah, I think in terms of just quick hints and tips on communication centre reporting and custom fields to get us started before you guys put your questions in or recommendations, I think that's probably just a quick high-level overview of those three parts of the system that people tend to ask. I don't know, Danny, has anything come through from the people on the call?
Yeah, lots of great chat coming through. We also have a hand up from Shine Lever. I don't know, Shine, if you wanted to say a few words, if you wanted to ask your question live to us. My colleague Andy is just about to unmute you, so you can talk away if you had a question for us. But yeah, lots of comments coming through on the chat. I think a lot of people are aware of custom fields, potentially not using them to their full advantage yet, but I think getting lots of ideas on today's session about how to use them best.
So Shaheen, you are now able to unmute yourself if you wanted to ask a question. And also it'd be interesting to hear from Vicky, I think, because Vicky has said that she would be interested to talk through what she has done with ComCenter. So Shaheen, I don't know if you wanted to say anything, but you just press unmute and you can speak. No, I don't think we're going to hear from Shaheen. Shaheen, if you want to speak, put something into chat and let us know what you want to talk about. Vicky, I'm going to open your mic up if I can find you on my system. I told you we'd have technical glitches. Mm-hmm. Vicky Ison, I'm going to allow your mic. Hello, Vicky.
Hi there.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. How did you find Nick's explanation?
Yeah, really useful. We've tended to put custom fields onto more of the TaxCalc tax information page. We put our fee protection onto there, and we also have a field where it has the premium in it, and that's kind of how we've linked it into the comm centre. So we sent all our fee protection renewals out on there, and it picked up the fee amount and the renewal information. So we knew which clients had it and which hadn't.
Right. Okay. And is there anything that because you said that you hadn't necessarily felt you'd used all of the functions there. Is there anything that you've seen or that you want to explore more? Or?
No, not really. I think it's just putting more information in there that's particular to clients. I don't think we've probably put enough custom fields in there. We've literally put the fee protection stuff into it, and source of referral are the two that we put onto there at the minute.
Right. So it's a data in issue. Any advice to Vicky?
I have a question for Vicky actually. Vicky, what were you using before? What was your process before you started using Comm Centre?
A spreadsheet.
Okay. So has this been an
and
improvement
then
for
literally,
you?
And then sort of manually having to sort of send each email out individually. That said, we're a relatively new practice, so last year the numbers weren't that big. This year, to have done it on that method would have been very time consuming.
Yeah, sure. So you think it's saving you a bit of time?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's brilliant to hear. Nick, have we got other examples that we hear from sessions that we do that are particularly useful? I
mean, the big ones that people are still storing in Excel spreadsheets tend to be the ones which I kind of mentioned there in terms of bookkeeping, username and password. That tends to be the main ones to start with, really. If we can try and get you to be storing as little information outside of a TaxCalc database as possible, that means that the more information you can store for your reporting and comm centre purposes, the better, really. You don't really want to be using Excel spreadsheets at all, obviously, for database information, just because it's a totally separate bit of information. So yeah, if there's anything which you do currently store that's kind of standardised lists, just create a custom field and make sure that you choose the correct type of custom field, whether it's a text field. Try and use the drop-down box as much as possible if it's kind of an option, because that just reduces the number of spelling mistakes, so it appears in the report correctly. But yeah, just try and store as much information there as you can, really.
We've had a message through from Simon Allen. Nick, you may remember you spoke with Simon just yesterday and you were speaking about Comm Centre amongst other things. Simon, you've said it's a very powerful tool in conjunction with Report Writer and Mailing List if you can get your head around how to use it. Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's just putting the time in to understand how you can get the most out of the system and how you can use Comm Centre to its fullest advantage. Do you have any tips around that, Nick, in terms of resources and online support?
Yeah, because when you're creating mailing lists, you create them as dynamic mailing lists, which means that if you create a mailing list that includes payments on account due for July, that might have 17 on my list that we saw earlier, let's say you run that same mailing list in 12 months' time, it's going to be different clients that are on that payment account for July that were on it last year, because some people might now have payments on account, some which might not. You don't want to send the same email to people who now no longer have payments on account for July. So having those mailing lists created as dynamic ones would really add a time-saving element rather than having to run the report and create a mailing list every single time. So having that as a dynamic one will save you a lot of time when sending out emails en masse to clients.
Yeah, also, and adding in documents as well to those emails that are going out and including other attachments if you need to send out further information to the client as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm sure that you have standardised information that gets sent out with emails in terms of attachments. You're able to add an attachment alongside an email that goes out to a client using those little paperclip on the send message area to attach a standardised message. You can't have a document that is different for every single client. But for example, if you have a how to pay your tax bill instruction document that's branded up using your practice logo and colour scheme, you can actually attach that to the email going out for your payments on account July, and then you can point obviously the client to that attachment in the body of the email.
Yeah, and I think it's just about using as much data as you've got in the system in a more proactive and collaborative way. I think the ability to run mail merges out to your client base and be proactive with information if tax legislation changes or if there's a need to get in touch with a huge number of clients very quickly, you can do that in minutes using Comm Centre. It's not too onerous a task. So further to Simon's point, once you get your head around it, it can be a very quick process to start communicating out to your client base.
Yeah, it's actually my favourite module of TaxCalc. As much as obviously the tax and account modules are a necessary part of the system, because without them, obviously your practice doesn't work, right? You can't do sets of accounts and tax returns. But the fact that you are filling in that information on a day-to-day basis to produce your tax and accounts, to be able to use that data from a reporting and filtering and slicing and dicing it to contact your clients much more in a targeted way than a kind of blanket approach, and clients get overloaded with communication that isn't related to them. To be able to target the clients with information relating directly to them in the body of the email itself, rather than just in an attachment, maybe with something like a client questionnaire, is where I see the power of a system like TaxCalc, rather than just a standalone tax and accounts tool. It really shows the highlight of the full suite product that TaxCalc now provides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if anyone on the call today would be happy to share any examples of how they're using ComCenter, any reports that they're running, anything that we can share on today's session that we think would help other people on the call. I think this is a collaborative session, and we're quite keen for firms and for users on today's call to share as much information as they're happy to, so that we can do a bit of peer-to-peer learning.
It'd be interesting to know what kind of fields people are doing. So we've talked about fee protection, we've talked about payment on account. Mm-hmm. Has there anyone got any particularly perhaps maybe some left field? It'd be interesting to know the strangest field that someone has added as a custom field. What's the best one?
We've seen some funny ones. We've seen plays golf. Golf days, charity golf days and things.
Yeah, are they a golfer? Yeah, one of its relatively recent site was part of the implementation. I went to go and see them. They're not based far from my house, so I was able to go actually see them as part of the implementation. And the director there is the president of the local golf club. So he was quite keen to have in his database whether the customer played golf or not. I think so he could invite them to a company golf day more than anything.
And to what standard?
He was comfortably a better golfer than me, but effectively having that in his database mattered to him. And of course, TaxCalc's not going to produce that kind of data field as standard. So having the custom field option really helped him to tailor what was important to him in terms of contacting his clients from a marketing and dealing with them in a much more personal way than maybe another accountancy practice would do.
Yeah. So it's typically marketing being the main function for it, or have you seen other people's perhaps slightly using it for a way that we hadn't envisaged?
Yeah, well, it's marketing in that standpoint, in terms of making sure that he's contacting people for his practice for something that he's trying to offer his firm and offer something slightly different than other practices are doing. But I think the main elements have been able to query in the main the tax data in the system. I'm sure more fields will be added later on down the line in the reporting tool. But the fact that you can be so proactive with that data and much more targeted communication with that data inside of the TaxCalc system, rather than having to export it to an Excel spreadsheet, upload it into a third-party mail shot system, but then the ability that when you send it out, it automatically saves it in the communication activity tab in the TaxCalc product is where the real power of that system is. Because as soon as you export information out of TaxCalc to an Excel spreadsheet, that's where the break is.
It's static at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas if you try and keep as much of it in that single one center, one hub process, it allows you to report on that data even further as such.
We've had a message in from Mark saying that he has a spreadsheet with his favourite TV show, or the client's favourite TV show, good icebreaker for meetings. I totally agree. I think that's a great idea. So that would be a good one for custom field and TaxCalc for future use. That's a great example, And then being able to have that information available to you if the client's coming in.
I'm interested to know where does it come up in the client onboarding?
I think you have to ask.
Is that part of the onboarding questionnaire?
Maybe it is now.
And what happens if it changes? This is throwing up all sorts of issues for me, I've got to say.
Absolutely. Jerry's coming with a question as well. Jerry, how do you export data from TaxCalc to Excel? Nick?
Yeah, also I will add that in at the same point as Pauline saying show you how to actually add a new custom field in, which is a great one. So I'll do those both at the same time. So effectively, if I share my screen again, so that will come through in a second. So in here, if you wanted to add your own custom field, you would go to Admin Center in the bottom left-hand corner. You would go to Applications on the left-hand side. And if you then double-click on Practice Manager, which is in my list is the fourth from the top, And then you've got custom fields on the left-hand side. Now these 5 or 6, actually now with security at the bottom, always forget security. These are the 6 different sections of the practice management list on the left-hand side of the client record that you can add the custom fields in. So you see I had mine under engagement page for bookkeeping username and password. You can see for bank details I had current account number and sort code. And as Vicky said, she uses the tax information page for her custom fields. Now, if I go to create field on the right hand side, you choose from the drop down list which section you would like it to appear on. So if I add under engagement page and I want to add it on all 4 of mine, I would then be able to add favourite TV show as an example, and you would then be able to choose what type of field you can have in there. So obviously for favourite TV show, text would be the option, but if it's different selections that you want to pick from, which helps really from a reporting point of view, drop down would be the one that I would massively recommend, because that's where you keep the options consistent and don't allow people to make spelling mistakes so it doesn't appear in the report. So if I choose leave it as text there, click save, and go to finish and save. And then if I actually log out of TaxCalc and then log back in, we would then be able to go to Practice Manager, go back to my client Ronald Chang, go to engagement, and we can see that that field is now there ready to be filled in. So it's really simple to actually add a new custom field in, but then you have to fill it in, right? I appreciate that it's going to be more time consuming for a slightly larger practice than a smaller one, but the earlier you can get those custom fields in and filled out, the better. I would almost say it's either an easy thing for a junior to run through the client list and fill them in, for example, with fee protection insurance, or it might be something which becomes part of a 12-month roll-on as part of a kind of a checklist that people do when the job comes around to be done, that you just tick the relevant one or pick the relevant one from a drop-down list to make sure that it's filled in over a 12-month period. It doesn't really matter on the process as long as everyone understands what that process is.
I wondered if we could just go back to ComCenter for a moment, Nick, and talk about the templates that you have in there. And talk about what's sort of there as standard and what you've set up yourself as well. Yeah,
so if I go to Communication Center, sorry, I should also say, in terms of exporting it to Excel, you will be able to see that on any of the reports, so if I just run a report, let me just run that Power Hour report that I produced then, just to answer the question that was in there before. You can see you've got the ability to export report in the top right-hand corner. I mean, if I click Export Report, you can choose PDF, Word or Excel. Hopefully that answers the question that that came through in the chat. So you should see that export report in there. So in terms of the different ones that are in there as standard, if I go to Communication Center and email templates, all of the requests for records and the request for records reminders are in your database as standard, and the same for the self-assessment ones for payment on account for July and payment of self-assessment taxman bill. I believe it's only the ones at the bottom as other that are in there that I have added in for my either training sessions or demonstrations. All the other ones are in there as standard, ready to go for you to use as soon as you take a license of Communication Center. Yep. And in terms of the other ones that people really want to see, if I go to check for confirmation statement, effectively it's just quite a standard, bog standard email template to kind of get you up and running quickly on it. But if you wanted to create your own template, it's very simple just to go to create template in the top left hand corner, give the template a name, so it's easy to pick from, so you know which one you're choosing, but the subject is the subject that would appear in the subject line of the email that gets sent out. You effectively then write your email. You've got various different fonts to choose from if you wanted to match your practice branding, and then you would choose from the tokens list the ability to pull the information from the body of the from the information from the TaxCalc database into the body of the email itself. So for example, if I was to choose first name, see that's where first name comes through, and the same for insert signature, it's this box here on the right hand side that would then import the mailbox signature for from your practice Outlook settings.
Well, I'm just wondering, Keith has asked a question about on the flip side of the export. Is there a way to update directly in TaxCalc the client records via CSV? I'm wondering, Keith, are you up for coming online and asking that question and having a chat about that? Hi, are you there?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Hello, Keith. Good to speak to you. Thanks for calling in. Do you want to just outline your question in a little bit more detail to Nick, and he can thrash through that?
Yeah, so obviously we've been TaxCalc users for a good number of years now. We've got quite a big client database. obviously we want to like bring the communication side of it into play. We don't currently hold all the email addresses of or any of the email addresses of our clients in the database because we've not had to use that for the accounts and the tax production. Is there an easy way without having to go into each record to sort of mass update the database for client fields?
It's not something that is like a front end piece of kit that TaxCalc allows you to import straight into those different sections, but it is potentially something that if a support call was logged and it was relatively easy for us to do at the back end, it would be a piece of script work. But to be fair, Keith, I can't imagine that would be particularly difficult to do. I expect that's probably something which a number of people on the call have got issues with in terms of like an email address fill-in. It could be something which our support team will be able to do in terms of importing it into your SQL database in the back end. I can't 100% confirm that the timelines of how long that would take to do, but if it's something that is possible, a support call would definitely be the best way to get that looked into.
Just so you know, Nick, the support team are outside and I can see them
angry. Yeah, they've got the pitchforks.
You're not going to be popular.
No, never am. Never changes.
If anyone on the call has come up with a solution to that, do let us know. And thank you very much, Keith. Did you have any other questions, or you?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. There's a message here from Phil. Is there a way of updating/editing the system-generated templates? I want to tweak the July payment on account email rather than add a brand new one.
Yeah, great one, that Phil. Unfortunately, you can't change the system-generated ones. Very similar to the reports. Yeah, the reports had a padlock on. I appreciate that the templates don't have a padlock on, but yeah, you can't edit the standard ones. What I would recommend you do though is effectively just copy and paste the wording from the template one that you can't edit, but go to create template and then paste that text into your new one and then tailor it and edit about. I appreciate sometimes it's a bit difficult to remember exactly which of the tokens it is into the body of your new template. But yeah, the copy and paste would get you 90% of the way there to then allow you to tailor it. I can see also you've adding attachments in bulk rather than one at a time. I believe, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong. Phil, do you want to come up here? Actually, I don't know if you're able to, if Andy's able to put you on. I just want to clarify exactly what you mentioned when you say attachments, because I just want to clarify when you say attachments, is that a single attachment like a newsletter, or is that individual attachments like, for example, the client questionnaire?
Okay, Phil, I'm going to allow your mic so you can now unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hi,
hi,
Phil.
Yes.
Hello, Phil.
Yeah. So yeah, when you use the communication center to send maybe the year-end accounts and the tax return and the other sort of documents like that, when you go to click it, you've got to go attachment, go to find where you've downloaded it, upload that one, then click attachment again. If you're sending 3, 4, 5 documents, sometimes obviously, it's a pain, isn't it? Because you'd rather just sort of highlight the 3 documents you want to send and attach them in one go.
Yeah, we do have a development case around that to get that updated. In another way, have you thought about using eSign out of interest for sending those documentation for signature to your clients rather than using communication center?
Sorry, documents for signature. Yeah, I use eSign. This is the drafts, so.
Right. Okay.
So when I send the drafts to them to review initially, they are. I use the comm center with the templates and everything I've got set up. But yeah, it's like I say, it's just that when you go to add the attachment, it's like, yeah, it's a real laborsome process if you're sending more than one thing.
Yeah, totally understandable. That is on the development plan to have that built up at some point. I can't give you a concrete date on that, unfortunately, Phil. But effectively, that is on the roadmap to have the ability to update multiple documents into it rather than doing it one by one. Because yeah, I do appreciate if you're doing a full set of accounts, filleted, corporation tax return, potentially cover and letter as well, to do it 4 or 5 times is sometimes a bit of a faff idea. I do appreciate that.
I think what you should do is volunteer the support team to do that. And
yeah.
just to make yourself slightly more fun. Thanks very much, Phil. Appreciate your question, Phil. There. Thank you. We are getting a lot of people asking questions about right at the start. How do you add a custom field? It might be worth just re-going over that a little.
Just re-going it again.
Yeah, we had a few people asking for that. So
yeah, and available to add for clients and contacts as well. That was a question earlier.
Right. So if we go to Admin Center, bottom left-hand corner, double click on Practice Manager, custom fields on the left-hand side, create field, and choose it from the drop-down box. Choose which ones you want it to appear on, and then as a field, tap what you filled in, and then what type you want it on the right-hand side. At the minute, I believe you can only actually add custom fields on for your clients rather than contacts, but I'm sure there's someone from our end in the product team in the chat that can confirm or
I think Martin
deny
said
that.
that we can add for clients and contacts
All
as
right,
well.
fantastic.
So Martin dropped into the chat earlier.
They
Thank you for that. So
You'd be
yeah,
something, as Andy said in the intro, there's definitely something I missed out. There's one example.
Do you want to go over it again?
No, definitely. I've just for my own learning, I think, at this point.
Okay, so there was a question here from Luke, which is it's quite interesting because I have no idea what the answer is, and I'm not sure if you guys are because it's beyond the actual functionality of the software. But Luke's saying, Luke, do you want to come on the call? I'm gonna open your mic up. So Luke, you can unmute yourself, but it'll be interesting to know what you've been told about security because it would be an interesting one, and someone else on the call might be able to help. I think you did have a comment from Simon there. So
yeah, Simon's jumped in as well just to say you just need a separate app password for each user. But yeah, it'd be good to hear from Luke to see what he's come up against.
you can unmute yourself, Luke, if you're there. If you're not, don't worry, that's fine.
What was the question? Sorry, Andy, I didn't quite see that.
So the question was...
I can read it for us.
Yeah, go on.
We like the look of Comm Centre for emails and would like to use it, but our IT support advised that we should use modern authentication with Office 365. Is there any progress on an upgrade to this, or am I being overly cautious? And Simon Allen's jumped in with a response to Luke's message saying you just need to use a separate app password for each user. So I guess, Simon, that's how you've sort of approached it within your firm. I don't know if Simon's around and available to jump in.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Hello, Simon. Hello. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. If I'm understanding Luke's point correctly, where he's struggling is on two-factor authentication for Office 365. And when you first input your SMTP, I think is the correct terminology, details into TaxCalc, it won't work immediately with Office 365 because it requires that extra level of authentication. We went through this with our IT supplier, and the way it's fixed is you set up what they call an app password for TaxCalc within Office 365, and then you put those details into TaxCalc in order that it bypasses that two-factor authentication. That's how we worked it anyway. So I'm pretty sure that's the answer. If I've understood the question properly.
Brilliant. Thank you very
brilliant,
much. Luke,
absolutely.
looks like Luke's having some problems unmuting. I'm not sure what's going on there.
And that's great advice as well.
That's
Thank you for
great advice,
sharing.
yeah.
I've also had a message from our product owner, Martin Davey. Thank you, Martin, for sending me a message. This is something that we're currently working on and is in development. So hopefully we'll have something for you, some sort of concrete information for you later in the year. So we don't sort of come up against any other issues. But yeah, thank you for jumping in and sharing your thoughts on things as well for us, Simon.
Okay, so I'm not sure how Luke's getting on, but thank you very much for that input.
Yeah, just to jump in there, I can see Martin. I appreciate. I think Martin's a relatively new user. I'm pretty sure I saw Martin join earlier in this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think Martin. I think if I'm right in saying, I think you're based on the Shetland Islands. I think Martin. I think I follow you on LinkedIn. I think you're quite big on LinkedIn. Yeah, I can see I think you've been struggling with the communication centre getting up and running with the password. I think that's what my colleague Martin was messaging Danny about, the fact that that will be updated. I believe in the autumn release towards the end of the year, in terms of making sure that those updates for the people who can't get communication centre working from a password perspective will get sorted. So yeah, we apologise that is not working right now. It's to do with our Office 365 security. Is not sometimes allowing third-party apps such as TaxCalc to allow it to work.
So just to be clear, this is when you've got Comm Centre and you're trying to connect that to your mail client to be able to actually send the email.
Yeah.
Right, I see.
I'm just sharing in the chat as well a guide for how to use the Comm Centre and how to get things set up. So that's sort of a step-by-step guide for anyone who's in the process of doing it and just wanted to have a read through. That's been shared.
Yeah.
Another question I've got, probably just with the last 10 minutes to go before we finish. in terms of using reporting, what are people's reporting requirements like for using our Practice Management Plus module, our workflow tool, in terms of using the work statuses? Are people using the reports very well for actually showing them where all their jobs are up to, whether it be for self-assessment returns, corporation tax, sets of accounts, confirmation statements, be able to use Practice Management Plus to update those stages as you're completing tasks? Are people using reports for that purpose? For example, if I quickly share my screen and show the type of report that I would tend to get out of TaxCalc for that type of information. So if I go back to Practice Manager and go back to Report Manager, I've got an example one for self-assessment returns. If I run that, it shows me straight away where all of my self-assessment returns. I appreciate I've got trusts and partnerships in there as well. But it will show me based on the tax return status here on the right hand side where all of my jobs are up to. I appreciate a lot of mine say not set. I'm not running actual practice in my software. I think that's for the benefit of any imaginary clients that I would look after. But you see there for John Benefits, it says that we have requested their information. We can see for Phil Dunphy's it is in progress. And you can run a similar one, say for example, for accounts production. So if I run this one, I've got all my accounts production sets of accounts in my database, and it tells me based on the account status where it's currently under review. This one's been sent for e-signature. This one's currently been requested, and it tells you straight away from those reports where all your accounts are up to. As Simon Allen said that we spoke to earlier, I had a good chat with Simon about these reports yesterday because he's been up and running on Practice Manager Plus for a while, and him and his partner there, Michelle, actually use those reports really, really strongly, and being able to check where all of those clients are up to. So as well as using reporting for contacting clients, being able to check where all your jobs are up to in terms of a process using Practice Management Plus is a hugely beneficial way of using reporting in terms of a job tracking tool. I don't know, Simon, if you're able to come off mute again, just to explain to everyone what your reporting capability is of Practice Management Plus.
So I'm back again.
Yeah, you're back on now, Simon. Yeah, we can hear you.
It may have oversold me here, to be honest. In the accounts production side of things, and those reports are more my wife's venue than mine. But I can certainly try and talk you through what we do.
Okay, yep, no problem at all. That's fine. Yeah, it was Michelle that we were talking to yesterday. But that's absolutely fine. But yeah, if you're using Practice Management Plus to keep track of where all your jobs are, using those reports in terms of work status reports are massively beneficial as well. It's also really easy to see using the Portfolio Manager tab, see who is actually in control of that job as well. So it's dead easy to allocate which of those clients are relevant to each individual in the practice if you've got like multiple people in charge of those clients.
All I was going to say is we do run two very similar reports to those that you've just shown on the screen, and they are a massive help. We've customised the reports to some extent, and we did get some help from I can't remember the guy's name at TaxCalc in doing those initially, but we use those to track all accounts jobs and use them as kind of a double check just to at the end just to make sure everything's been picked up properly before month end. We do also use custom fields on the tax return report that you just showed, literally just to split out company directors from sole traders or other, because we manage those two categories slightly differently internally, and that's a really helpful report as well. It's a really good use of the custom fields.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Simon.
Thank you,
very,
Simon.
Very helpful.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, and there's a huge amount of functionality that's within that database, isn't there? And the richness of that database can be leveraged in a number of different ways. I think, if anyone on this call has got any module within TaxCalc, whether that's accounts tax, whether you're just sort of doing basic tasks, or whether you're using TaxCalc for your entire software suite, you can use a huge amount of that reporting capacity to run those data fields. And I think understanding, that the more data you're putting into the system, the more you can get out of it as well. So really using that sort of SQL database to the best of its ability.
Okay, so Neil said if I add a field for fee protection cover, could I tick a box to indicate whether or not a client took out the cover, and how would I run a report Excel spreadsheet to show me? I can then send it to our fee protection provider. Now, we had an interesting conversation. We did a webinar with Vantage fee protection, and there was a lot of talking about how the communications goes, and some people are handing their database to their fee protection provider to do the communications for them, and a lot of firms don't want to do that, but ComCenter does give you that advantage that you can do that.
Shall I show Neil how to do that?
Jump in, Neil. I might bring you in just so you can guide in case Nick doesn't cover what you need. But let me open your mic up.
While that's happening, I'll start producing that report for Neil. Might have a Luke situation, struggling to get the microphone working. So as we've seen, we know how to add the extra field on as an additional one, and you know how to go to the client record and choose the toggle. But once you've got all that information in, it's going to Practice Manager, it's going to Report Manager. And I appreciate I might be going through this pretty quickly, but the recording will be sent out to all of you to follow this through in your own time afterwards today. If you went to New Report, and I'll call this Fee Protection 2, or Fee Protection 2, doesn't really matter for this one. You would then go to Advanced Client Selection Datamine, and then click Datamine, Add Condition. You would go to Client Information, and Custom Fields. Fee Protection Insurance would then be in there. See, there's my favourite TV show that I added earlier. And then you'd be able to choose yes or no. So if you wanted to run a report for the ones which don't have it, you could do that. But if I were to say yes, and then hit run, this is where all of my clients that have fee protection insurance with the practice would sit. So effectively, that would be whether it's individuals, limited companies, doesn't matter, it would still be on there. Then you click continue to go to report customization. You add in the relevant fields that you want to be on that report. As I said, usually client name, client code. You then probably want your contact information, especially as if Andy said some people are comfortable giving over that information to the fee protection provider themselves. You want to give them the contact information to actually contact them. So you give contact number and email address. And then I also like to just add the custom field of fee protection just to show that the answer was yes on them all. Again, choose to sort by code, name, contact number, whatever you want to do. Click continue, finish and save, and yes. And then that gives you a nice report for you to export potentially to a PDF, Word, Excel document, if you want to export that and have it externally. But then it gives you all that information and a list of all the clients in your database that do have fee protection insurance with you based on that toggle that you filled as an extra field. So hopefully, Neil, that does answer your question that you had there.
We've had a question in from Rupesh. Sorry, we missed your question earlier, Rupesh. Question for you, Nick. Will you be looking to make personal tax return info request process easier? And is there any features to password protect PDF for tax return copy? Two-parter there.
Oh, good question. So I'll pass this one back to you, Danny, in terms of with encrypted PDFs. If you have the PDF encryption, would that password protect?
I believe so. That would password protect the tax return.
Yeah.
So to send that to clients. I don't know, Rupesh, if you're able to. Again, Andy, would you be able to do the honours?
I can do the honours, and we can ask
just
Rupesh.
to understand, just to clarify.
Yeah, in terms of the, just while Andy's unmuting, in terms of the personal tax information request streamlining, I appreciate at the minute whenever you produce a client questionnaire document, it saves it individually. We are going to be updating in the autumn release the ability that when it exports as a .doc file, it will be exported as a docx. You'll be able to attach that straight away to the communications centre email to send out to your client rather than having to convert it. But there is no way in the current product to attach each client's questionnaire to the communication centre to send out en masse. Again, it is something we are looking at. Again, I don't have a specific date on that, but it is something we are aware of. So yeah, just in terms of streamlining that, we are aware of it in terms of being able to speed it up and make it better, but it's not something that is on the immediate radar to be updated either in the next week's release or in autumn. But it could be something which is updated after that point.
Okay.
Yeah, and Rupesh, I don't know if you can.
You can unmute yourself, Rupesh, if you do want to expand on that question at all. But it's absolutely fine if that's covered what you need. But let us know. But to be honest, I think we've kind of come to the end of our very first Power Hour. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I hope it was
Thank
helpful.
you. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I mean, what I think I'd like to say, thank you very much for coming, and certainly thank you very much for contributing as well so much. We'd like to build a bit of a community around this, and we want to do this on a monthly basis, probably in the last Wednesday of every month. And really just to make this into something where we all feel that we can share best practice and ideas and grow a kind of TaxCalc camp, if you like. Maybe we'll actually go on a camp next in the next few years.
I'll need a big tent.
But maybe that's taking it a little bit too far. But what we'd really like to do is make sure that this really works. So if you do have any comments on the kind of the format or what you'd like to see us doing in it, whether you'd like to focus more on sort of a practical case study, particular topics that you'd like to cover, can you email me directly? It's andy.north@taxcalc.com. That's andy.north@taxcalc.com. You should always say it twice. And if you've got any ideas on how you would like this to go, if you would like it to be, as I say, we could pick a particular a challenge and all work through it together, for example, might be quite an interesting way of going about it. Please do let me know. But we will otherwise be back. We're going to aim to do one on the 26th of June, so keep an eye out for the promo for that one. It'll be at 2:30 in the afternoon. But without otherwise, and I do want to say thank you so much to Shahin, who did have his hand up the entire time. I'm not sure if he wanted to say anything, but Shahin, that was great work. Hands up. So thank you very much, Nick and Danny. I don't know if you had any final words.
No, just thank you to everyone for their engagement as well. As Andy said, we'd love to have some ideas of what people wanted to cover in the next session. And yeah, any other questions that you have, email Andy. I've just popped his email into the chat for us, or contact Nick or I via email or on LinkedIn. And yeah, we hope to see you at the next one.
Yeah, wonderful. We're gonna grow this community. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. See you next time. Take care. Bye bye.